The galaxy was vast and endless, filled with thousands of powerful empires, each proud of its strength and each certain that no one could challenge their rule. Among them was the Zorith Empire, a race known for their warships and their cold, ruthless way of conquering others. They had defeated many worlds, broken many rebellions, and erased entire species who dared to fight back. To them, victory was always certain. But then came the rumor of a single human, not an army, not a fleet, just one man with a ship. His name was not spoken in full. Instead, they whispered and called him the Ghost of Terra. They said he moved through the stars like a shadow, striking when least expected, escaping traps that no one could escape, and leaving wreckage behind without explanation. At first the Zorith laughed. They thought it was nothing but stories, weak alien propaganda meant to scare them. Yet the stories kept coming more and more often. A patrol ship vanished near an asteroid field. Then a convoy was found drifting, its crew gone without a trace. Later, a whole squadron failed to report back after chasing a lone human ship into a nebula. All evidence pointed to the same conclusion. One human was behind it. The Zorith Council of War gathered in a grand chamber, the walls glowing with the light of 1,000 stars. They debated loudly, their voices cold and sharp. "He is a nuisance," one commander growled. "But no more than that," another hissed. "Then explain the 20 ships we have already lost." The Supreme Warlord answered, his voice heavy with anger. Silence followed, for no one dared argue against the Warlord. In the end, the decision was made. They would send a fleet, not a small patrol, not a scouting party, but a fleet of 50 warships. They wanted to capture this human alive, to break him before the galaxy, to show everyone that resistance was useless. The order spread like fire across the Empire. 50 warships prepared for departure. Their engines glowing, their weapons sharp, soldiers marched on board with confidence. Some laughed at the idea. One human against 50 ships? He will beg for mercy. They mocked. Others were less certain. They had heard the whispers. They had seen the faces of survivors who spoke of him. Their eyes filled with fear. The fleet moved out, leaving behind the safety of the Empire. Stars stretched across their path. And at the center of their mission was only one goal: capture the Ghost of Terra. The hunt had begun. Far away, in the shadow of a broken moon, the human sat inside his ship, his eyes calm, his hands steady. He knew they were coming. He had expected it. His ship was small compared to theirs, not built for war. Yet every part of it had been changed, upgraded, twisted into something no alien could predict. It was not just a ship, it was a weapon of tricks. He leaned back, looking at the stars, and whispered to himself, 50 ships? Good. Let them come. There was no fear in his voice, only a strange calm, as if he had already planned every step of what was about to happen. In the darkness of space, the fleet spread out, searching, their sensors sharp, their weapons ready. They sent out messages, demanding the human surrender. No answer came. Instead, silence filled the void. Then, suddenly, the first ship reported a strange signal near an asteroid belt. They rushed in, weapons hot, but within minutes the channel went dark. The ship never returned. The fleet was shaken. One ship gone so easily. The commanders tightened their formation, anger burning in their eyes. He cannot hide forever. They swore, but deep inside, the first seeds of fear had been planted, because this was not the story of an empire hunting a man. It was the story of one human standing against an empire, and somehow the galaxy was watching, waiting, wondering who would survive. The hunt had only begun, but already the shadows of fear followed the fleet. And in the silence of space, the Ghost of Terra smiled. The fleet of 50 ships spread across the stars, their formation wide, their engines burning bright. Scanners swept through empty space, searching for the small human ship. The commanders believed it would be easy. They thought it would take only a few hours before the Ghost of Terra was caught. But the human knew the game better than them. He did not run in a straight line. He did not hide in one place. Instead, he moved like smoke in the wind, always slipping away just before they closed in. It felt as if he could read their plans before they even gave the order. At first, the aliens mocked him. "He is only delaying the inevitable," one commander said. "A rat can run, but it cannot escape forever." His words echoed through the command bridge, filling the soldiers with laughter. But that laughter did not last long. The first trap came near a nebula. The fleet detected his small ship entering the thick clouds, and 20 ships rushed after him. Lasers lit up the fog, chasing shadows. Their scanners blinked with false signals. They thought they had cornered him. But then the screaming began. One ship hit an invisible mine. The explosion tore its hull apart. Pieces of metal drifted into the clouds. Then another ship fired wildly and struck its own ally. Confusion spread. The nebula was filled with burning wreckage. When the smoke cleared, 3 Zorth warships were gone, destroyed in minutes, and the human ship had vanished. The news spread quickly through the fleet. Whispers began. How could one man set traps in a nebula? How did he know we would chase him? The soldiers started to look at the stars differently, as if shadows were watching them, as if death itself was waiting behind the light. The commanders grew angry. They ordered strict hunting lines, tighter formations. No one was allowed to break away. But still, the human outsmarted them near an asteroid field. He lured them into chasing him again. The asteroids were silent giants drifting slowly in space, harmless to most, but deadly when used with skill. The ghost of Terra flew between the rocks like he had been born there, sliding through gaps that no alien ship dared to enter. The larger warships tried to follow, their metal scraping against stone, alarms blaring. Then came the explosions, hidden charges set off blasts that shook the whole field. Massive rocks collided with ships, crushing hulls, splitting engines apart. In seconds, 4 more warships were destroyed. Now panic began to stir, 7 ships gone. And the human had not even shown his face. They had not fired a single clear shot at him. He was like a shadow tearing them apart piece by piece. On the flagship, the Supreme Commander slammed his fist against the console. Enough games? He roared. This is no ghost. This is no spirit. This is only a man, and he will fall. But even his voice could not erase the fear growing in his crew. Soldiers began to whisper in secret, their voices low. They say humans were forged in endless wars. They say they are born hunters. Another answered, no, they say humans are cursed. They fight until nothing is left, not even themselves. Such whispers spread faster than commands, faster than discipline. The ghost of Terra was not just fighting with weapons, he was fighting with fear. He made the fleet see traps in every star, danger in every shadow. Days passed. The fleet stretched thinner, their resources drained, their confidence fading. Every time they thought they had trapped him, he slipped away. Every time they felt safe, another ship vanished. The human watched from the dark, calm and patient. He knew they were breaking. He knew their anger would soon turn into mistakes. His plan was not to fight 50 ships at once. His plan was to let their fear destroy them from the inside. And slowly it was working. By the end of the second week, the mighty fleet of 50 had already lost 10 ships, a fifth of their power gone. And still, the ghost of Terra was alive, untouched, unseen. The galaxy was watching, news spread like fire. Other races heard the whispers. The Zorth sent 50 ships to hunt one man, and he is winning. Some laughed, some trembled, and some began to hope. Because if one human could do this, then maybe the Zorth were not invincible after all. But inside the fleet, there was no laughter, only silence. A heavy silence that followed them into every corner. The soldiers slept with fear in their eyes. The commanders tightened their fists, and the stars around them seemed colder than before. The chase had begun as a proud hunt, but now it felt like a nightmare. And somewhere in the endless black, the ghost of Terra whispered to himself, "Not yet, not enough, let them come closer, then we strike." The game was only beginning. The mighty fleet that once launched with pride was no longer the same. 50 ships had left the Empire in perfect order. A shining wall of power meant to crush one man. But now 40 remained, and even those 40 were breaking apart inside. It was not only the loss of ships that hurt them. It was the way they had fallen, destroyed by tricks, traps, and shadows. No enemy fleet, no great battle, just one human slipping through their fingers. One human who seemed to know their every move. On the command bridges, silence replaced laughter, orders were short, voices were sharp. Soldiers no longer looked certain. Some avoided eye contact. Some whispered when no officer was near. Fear had crept into the heart of the fleet. They had been trained to fight armies, to fight heavy war machines, to fight worlds. But this was different. This was not war. This was a nightmare that hunted them in the dark. Every night cycle, more rumors grew. He sees us before we see him. One soldier whispered. No, He is inside our systems. He can hear everything. Another replied. A third said nothing, but showed his trembling hands. The commanders tried to stop the fear. They punished men for speaking. They gave speeches about honor and duty. But still, the whispers spread. Discipline could not kill shadows. The ghost of Terra had become more than a man. He had become a legend of fear. They imagined his eyes watching them through the void. They imagined his hands planting bombs on their hulls while they slept. Some even believed he was not human at all, but something worse. One ship captain woke to alarms screaming in the night. The crew rushed to stations, weapons ready, scanners lit with red marks. They thought the human was attacking. They fired into the dark. Shooting at nothing, hours later, they realized the signals were false, planted inside their own system, a trick, a laugh hidden in the code. When the commander reported this to the supreme leader, the warlord slammed his fist down. His voice thundered, "He is mocking us." And it was true. The human was not only fighting with weapons, he was fighting with their minds, breaking their courage piece by piece. The fleet moved slower now, afraid to chase too far. Every nebula, every asteroid, every shadow looked dangerous. Ships tightened their scans. Crews jumped at every sound. Then another ship vanished, not in battle, not in fire, simply gone. Its last message was a short scream before the channel cut. Nothing was found, only drifting debris. The soldiers swore they saw something in the wreckage. Words scratched into the metal, 3 words burned into their minds. Not enough yet? The fear grew worse. Whole crews begged to turn back. Some officers demanded retreat. But the supreme commander refused. His pride was iron. His rage was endless. 50 ships, he growled. We will not return until he is broken, until he kneels before us. But the soldiers no longer believed. They saw the human not as prey, but as the hunter. The fleet was no longer chasing him. They were being led, step by step, deeper into his trap. One night, 2 captains spoke secretly over a private channel. He is not fighting us. One said, he is studying us. The other nodded, his face pale. He knows our patterns, our weakness. He is cutting us open slowly. They both fell silent, because in their hearts they knew it was true. Across the galaxy, news spread like fire. Other empires, other species, they all heard the story. The Zorith sent 50 ships to catch one man, and he is winning. Some laughed with joy, others whispered with dread. The legend of humans grew larger with every ship that fell. Back inside the fleet, tension boiled. Soldiers slept with weapons in hand. Crews flinched at every sound. And the commanders grew harsher, punishing even small mistakes. But punishment could not erase the fear. The ghost of Terra had turned their fleet into prey. He had turned their pride into weakness, and the more they fought, the more their fear betrayed them. And somewhere, in the dark, the human smiled. He knew fear was the sharpest blade. He did not need to destroy them all at once. He only needed to make them destroy themselves. The hunt was no longer about capture, no longer about power. It had become something else, something darker. And the fleet could feel it in their bones. They were not hunters anymore. They were the hunted. The silence of fear had already broken the fleet. 40 ships remained, but none of them felt whole anymore. The ghost of Terra had hunted them with shadows, with whispers, with traps. But now the game was about to change. The human had waited long enough. He had studied them, learned their patterns, counted their mistakes, and now he was ready to strike. It began with a message, short, clear, cold. It echoed across every ship's channel. I am done running. The voice was human, steady, calm. Not a shout, not a scream. Only calm words that carried more weight than 1,000 threats. The commanders froze. The soldiers held their breath. Silence filled the fleet as if the stars themselves had stopped burning. Then the voice returned. You came to capture me, but you will not leave here alive. And before anyone could respond, the attack began. The first strike was sudden. A missile ripped through the engines of a destroyer. Fire tore through its hull. Alarms screamed. The ship spun out of control and exploded. No one even saw where the missile came from. Panic spread. Weapons fired wildly into the dark. Beams of light cutting across empty space. But the ghost of Terra was not there. He had already moved. On the edge of the fleet, another ship went dark. Its systems hacked, its lights flickering. its guns turning against its own allies. For minutes chaos ruled until the ship self-destructed in a blaze. The soldiers began to shout. "He is inside our systems. He is everywhere." The fear that had grown in whispers now roared openly. The commanders shouted orders, trying to hold control. Stay in formation, scan every sector. But the human ignored their formations. He attacked where they were weakest. He vanished before they could turn. Every move felt like he was reading their minds. For the first time, the ghost of Terra showed his face. His small ship cut through their lines like a knife, not built for war, but moving faster and sharper than any of their heavy warships. He struck once, twice, then vanished into the stars, leaving wreckage behind. Soldiers who had once laughed at the mission now trembled. They saw their mighty fleet bleeding. They felt powerless. The legend was no longer a whisper. It was real. One alien captain screamed into the channel. "He is only one man, only one ship." But his words broke apart as his vessel exploded in a fireball. The human was not hiding anymore. He was hunting openly. His traps now turned into direct strikes. His silence now broken by fire and steel. The Supreme Commander roared in anger. "He is mocking us. Fight back." But every order only led to more loss. Their weapons were too heavy, too slow, built for battles against fleets, not for chasing a phantom with speed and cunning. Another squadron fell. 6 ships burned. 1 captured. Its crew lost to the void. And through it all, the humans sent no more words, only silence, silence more frightening than any threat. The soldiers of the Zorith Empire had been raised to believe no enemy could match them. But now they faced something worse than defeat. They faced humiliation. They faced a single human turning their pride into ash. In the lower decks of many ships, crews spoke in fear. "What is he?" one asked. "How can a single man do this?" Another answered with trembling lips. "He is not a man, he is the end." And the words spread like fire. For every ship that fell, the legend grew. The galaxy watched with wide eyes. The story spreading across stars. A story of one human standing against 50 warships. A story that turned empires into children trembling in the dark. And still, the ghost of Terra was not finished. He was only beginning. By the end of the week, 30 ships remained. 20 had been destroyed, lost, or abandoned. And the survivors were no longer hunters. They were prey, desperate and broken. The Supreme Commander stood in silence, staring at the stars. His pride cracked, his eyes cold. He whispered words meant only for himself. "This is no ghost. This is war." But even he knew the truth. The human was not only at war with them. He was making an example, one strike at a time. He was sending a message to the whole galaxy. And the message was clear. Humans were not prey, humans were predators. The ghost of Terra had begun his counterattack. And the real nightmare was only starting. The fleet had been broken piece by piece. Ships once proud and shining were now drifting wrecks. Twisted metal scattered across the stars. 20 ships gone. 30 still holding formation. But their strength was only an illusion. Inside the fleet, there was no pride left, no laughter, no courage. The soldiers did not march with power anymore. They moved like shadows, tired, afraid, waiting for the next strike. Every captain had the same thought burning in his mind. When will it be me? The ghost of Terra no longer hid in silence. His attacks were sharper, louder, more direct. He struck openly, and then vanished into the void. He left nothing but wreckage, nothing but fear. The commanders shouted orders, they punished mistakes. They tried to hold the fleet together, but discipline was breaking. Whole crews trembled at their stations. Officers spoke in whispers. Some ships refused to move too far ahead. The Supreme Commander's anger had turned into something colder, something darker. His pride had been cut, but he would not retreat. His voice filled the command bridge. "We are the Zorith, we do not run, we do not break, we finish this." But even as he spoke, the faces of his soldiers betrayed doubt. Then came the moment that would never be forgotten. The fleet was regrouping near the edge of a dead star system. Their scanners sweeping for signs of the human. Silence stretched across the channels. Then a signal broke through. It was his voice, the human, calm and steady, echoing into every ship. "You sent 50 ships for one man," he said, his tone almost gentle, almost mocking. "And still, "You cannot touch me." The words froze the fleet. No one spoke. No one moved. The commanders clenched their fists. Soldiers held their breath. Then came the line that would haunt the galaxy forever. "You should have sent more." Simple words, but they carried the weight of doom. They were not a threat, not a scream, just cold truth. The fleet erupted in panic. Some shouted, "Cut the channel." Others whispered, "He is everywhere. He is inside our systems." Fear turned into chaos. Weapons charged. Alarms rang. The silence of space filled with the sound of their own desperation. And then, as if to prove his words true, he struck again. 3 ships exploded in less than a minute. Their hulls split by precise strikes. Their wreckage drifting in fire. The survivors screamed across the channels, their voices breaking. Another ship fell to his hacking, its guns turning against its allies, blasting them with their own weapons before burning out in flames. Every soldier now knew the truth. It was not 50 against 1. It was 1 against nothing. They were not hunters. They were toys in the hands of a predator. The commanders tried to rally them. "Hold your line. Stay strong." But their words sounded weak. Even to themselves, every explosion drowned their orders. Every whisper of the human's message grew louder. "You should have sent more." Those words spread beyond the fleet, across the empire, across the galaxy, carried by rumors and fear. Whole systems began to question the power of the Zorith. If one human could do this, then perhaps the empire was not unstoppable. The soldiers felt it too. They had once believed their empire was eternal. But now, doubt crawled through their bones. Their morale crumbled. Their pride was ashes. Inside the wreckage of another destroyed ship, soldiers left a final message scratched into the metal before they died. "The human is not running, we are." The Supreme Commander stared at the burning debris on his screen. His eyes hollow, his fists shaking. Rage and shame battled inside him. But he could not speak. Not after hearing those words. Not after losing half his fleet. The ghost of Terra had turned the hunt into humiliation. He had turned their war into a lesson, a warning carved into fire and steel. And as the fleet limped forward, broken and bleeding, the human vanished once more into the stars, waiting for the next moment to strike, calm, patient, merciless. The turning point had come. The hunters were no longer hunters. They were survivors clinging to the last of their strength. And the galaxy was watching, because the question was no longer if the fleet would fall. The question was how long before the last ship burned.